Nelson Mandela's dream of establishing a specialist pediatric, academic and tertiary referral hospital is closer to realization. The hospital will provide child-centered and best quality medical services to the children of Sub-Saharan Africa when it opens its doors later this year. The hospital is a project of the Nelson Mandela Children's Fund in accordance with the instruction of the late President Mandela. It has been a labor of love for the CEO of the hospital, Ms. Sibongile Mkhabela, who joins us to discuss the launch of the long-awaited hospital. Pleasure to have you with us, ma'am.
Thank you.
It's been a long march to the studios and our interview here, but finally we are pleased. The job is almost complete, and now you've found a moment to come and tell us the journey of the hospital. We appreciate.
It's been an amazing journey.
Yes, a dream come true, right?
It's really also a journey of many South Africans.
Yes.
Because we were the people who had the responsibility to build it. But the truth of matter is the money came from average South Africans.
Yes.
Donations came from companies in the country. People donated their time. Consultants donated their consulting services, brand organizations donated their time, and so it's really been an effort by many, many, many people.
But the old man, Madiba, when he dreamed about this hospital, what did he didn't have any money for it, I can imagine. And he probably just thought, we need to have this hospital.
Yeah,
I called a meeting there.
I probably needed to have my sanity checked.
Can I have a hospital?
I needed to have my sanity checked. Sure. And then listening to an old man.
Yes.
With a big dream.
Yes.
With no money on the table.
Yes.
And you still carry it out.
So how long has the project been underway?
Wow, the initial Madiba dedicated the soil on which it was going to be built in 2009, and at that point we had nothing more than a concept, and so one would track from 2009 when we were doing feasibility studies. We finished our business case post feasibility studies. We're very thorough in our research. That's one thing I would be certain of. Maybe that's why we're not available. We're very thorough. We first set to do pre-feasibility. Should we be thinking like this? And feasibility, how would it work? And then do the business case. Does it make business sense to do this thing? Would it work?
Yes.
And would it be sustainable? And that's around 2012. That's when we, in earnest, started our fundraising. It was going to cost us R1 billion. It's going to cost R1 billion. I mean, I'm an NGO person. I've always worked in the NGO sector, so I don't know much about money.
How much is the Children's Fund? Because you are also, you're part of the Children's Fund, right? You had something in the kitty there, didn't you?
No. The Children's Fund, from its own capital, it has set aside 250 million of its own.
Yes.
And that is what gave us even a bigger push.
Yes.
But then, that was matched by other donors, especially international donors. They like the idea of matching.
Yes,
you give me R5. If you want R5, let someone else give you R3 and I'll give you R2.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
So we, the Children's Fund itself, and it still remains a solid organization. We continue to look for money. What has happened with us as the Children's Fund, this continues the discipline of going out and looking for money. If you're looking for money, you've got to have a solid track record.
But for you, as the main person in charge of the project, several things. It's the project itself, the feasibility studies, and the construction of the hospital. And on the other side, the fundraising challenge that were happening both at the same time.
All of them mostly, at the same time.
Especially where infrastructure is involved, ideally, you should have all the money up front before you start.
Yes, people were surprised. How are we going to build? And we said, well, when we are halfway mark, can we start building?
Yes.
So we started halfway mark. We're at what? At about 500 million rand of donated funding. We started building. That meant that fundraising continues, but you also have to continue watching the infrastructure.
Yes.
But that's not the only thing. You also have to think about who's going to work here. So we started training. We got funding from the National Skills Fund, 70 million rand. We started training doctors and nurses. So we have nurses, doctors in the pipeline who we've been training to close the gaps, because the feasibility will then tell you where your gaps are, and we started closing the gaps. So we had people on training, we had people on the ground and infrastructure, we had fantastic teams on project management, but also we didn't have money. So we had to draw a line in the sand and say it goes this far and it does not go 1 penny more. And that requires very tight management.
Well, I was about to ask the question that I can imagine your star attraction, Madiba himself, was no longer available to keep attracting new money to the project, right? Because in the past, when you were still active and so on, it would not have been too much of a problem for you to bring additional donors on board. So how did you go about persuading and begging where you could to get additional money to come onto the project?
A professional beggar and a professional pickpocketer too.
Yes.
So that's what we do.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, you see, the Children's Fund had probably 10 years before Dada passed, had already developed the discipline of it's not who we are, it's the work we do.
Yes.
It's the impact we have on children.
Yes.
And it's the vision we put up for society. And Madiba supports that.
Yes.
So I think we had, for a while, kind of began to be independent. We're not quite dependent on Dada's fundraising. We would have used it. It would have been fantastic to have him. I remember him one time when Qunu with Umama and we're looking at the plans of the hospital, and he says, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, we're planning." He says, "You haven't built yet?" No, Dada, we haven't started building and whatever. And he says, "Well, bring all the business people around this dinner table.
Yes.
I will tell them why it's important for South Africa to do this."
Yes.
But at that time, of course, I couldn't do that.
Yes.
In all honesty and in clear conscience, you can't do that. You have to rely on your own resources.
Yes.
You have to rely on the networks that you already have built. More importantly, you have to rely on your track record. You know, the Children's Fund has prided itself. We are 21 years this year, and we have exactly 21 annual reports, audits that are clean every year. And we've prided ourselves there. We also pride ourselves in our depth, in our ability to go to deep rural areas, but also in our, so we felt we had enough presence in the work we do to be able to do this. To an extent, we're fearful, but we also had amazing South African leaders who stepped in. His wife, Mrs. Mashal, stepped in to assist us. Tito Mboweni, former governor, stepped in to assist. So a number of South African leaders stood up and they assisted us with the fundraising. And we were able to get one South African company gave 100 million rands.
Well, let them get a mention then.
100 million rand.
Which company is that?
Max Steel.
Max Steel?
Yeah,
okay.
Max Steel, Eric Sampson put in the 100 million rand, and he's been part of the Children's Fund.
Yes.
And he's one of our board members. In one of our board meetings, we're sitting there and we're looking at the problems and how we're going to solve the problems. And he looked at the numbers and he said, "I'll put 100 million. I thought he was joking. He did.
Yeah.
So it's really been, it's also, I think for me, it's been an experience to learn how to do things when you can't take anything for granted.
Yes.
Where every person and every penny counts. Young people came to the party. I don't know if you know about the For Kids by Kids campaign. It's led by South African and non-South African young people. I mean, when I say young, I mean the young girl who was 3, 4 at the launch is now a 10-year-old who runs around motivating other young people.
Are you kidding
We've been
me?
to schools in Soweto, at least in Soweto, I think we've been to about 10 schools
Yes.
in Soweto. They've taken their kitties and, piggy
Pocket
banks,
money,
their
whatever.
pocket money, and they've put it in there.
Oh,
So
shit,
some
that's
of our gardens will be dedicated to children.
Yes.
And I think it just taught us it's not big monies that count. It's the vision and the clarity of the vision that you put up.
I love that story. Let's talk about the hospital itself. What kind of services is it going to provide? Just stating some facts, but who knows? They might be made. It's 200-bed hospital, and what will be happening?
It's so important for people to understand that FIRST is not going to be a walk-in hospital.
Yes. Okay.
It's a referral hospital. It sits on the same platform, if you like, in that the doctors will rotate from Baragwanath, Charlotte Macheke, Steve Biko in Pretoria, it's the same doctors who will come through to this Nelson Mandela Children's Hospital. At that point, they'll be doing very high-level work. It's because it's tertiary work. It's children are pretty sick. Just the other day, I went to the hospital and the dialysis machines had just arrived. So that was going to be it's a big area where you're going to do, you know, we don't have machines that do dialysis for children. That means now if you have child with a kidney failure, the chances are that they're going to drown in their own liquids. And looking at those machines are like we're saving lives, you know. So you're going to have oncology as well, and Islamic Relief is one of the organizations worldwide. They organize their money and they're amongst their own affiliates, and they put in 100 million rand to build and equip partly the oncology unit. So cancer and child, obviously everything is about children, so child cancers are big in the hospital. Bone marrow transplant, which we don't do bone marrow transplant, we'll be doing bone marrow transplants, as well as, you know, children. The beauty about children is that when a child has a heart problem, they don't have a heart problem. You know what I mean? Once you fix that hole in the heart, they go on to play rugby. When I have a heart problem, it doesn't matter how much you fix it. I'll always be telling you, a child doesn't do that. And that's the beauty about, you know, when you see what you pull out, the kids you bring out who otherwise would have been lost because they have a hole in their hearts, they're going to die.
New lease on life
and they appreciate it, and they go out, and they're fantastic young people out there.
The launch is happening when, and are we invited, by the way?
You're not invited, Tim. You will have a personal invitation from me. You have a personal invitation, and we'd love to have your program right there, because the people of Soweto, especially the young people, I mean, at the launch, all the acts, the performances, going to be young people's performances. We're strong on young people and young people in art and young people and excellence. So we'll be displaying the best of what is going on in South Africa. I know there are lots of negative things going on, but there are also amazing stars in South Africa. We'll showcase our stars.
It's on the 2nd of December, right?
It's on the 2nd of December. We're not doing a dinner. We're doing a breakfast.
Okay. Talking about dates, the 22nd of October, you are giving a lecture yourself.
I am. I'm very terrified. I'm actually quite intimidated because I'm doing an inaugural lecture, the Tsietsi Machine, an inaugural lecture. It's intimidating in that through the 40 years, we haven't had the time to pull the story of the struggle of young people in 76, to pull it together in such a way that it can be a lesson, you know, for other generations, but even a reflection for ourselves, something that we can look at, you know, after so many years. So yeah, I'm doing it.
Where is this? 22nd?
At Morris Isaacson.
22nd October.
22nd October.
Yeah, Morris Isaacson.
Yeah, please do come. At least I look in the audience and I'll feel a bit stronger, because right now I'm feeling quite intimidated.
Ms. Sibongile Mkhabela, much appreciated, and thanks again for putting so much effort and love in the Children's Hospital and fulfilling Madiba's dream. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.